This is standard for us, and you'll need to click that it's okay. So I'll just make a start now. Rita, I think we've got about 30 people in the room. So if you just want to let people in, we'll make a start just so we can get everybody out on time. So welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Joy Davidson. I'm Associate Director with the Digital Curation Centre in the UK. And I am also leading Work Package 2 on engagements in Fair Impact. And today's webinar is to introduce to you the support program that we've put together for research performing organizations. There will be an open call launching later on this week, and you can apply to join the program if you find it looks like it's going to be useful for you. So really what I'm hoping to do today is just to give you an overview of the support program that we're putting together, the kinds of things we'll be offering, and the kinds of things that we would be looking for from the participants who take part. We'll give a sort of generic overview of the project and a little bit more of a specific dive into the kinds of support we're offering to the research performing organizations. And then we'll give you an overview of how you would go about applying the kinds of things that we would be looking to see in the applications. And we do want to leave some time for questions and answers so that if our overviews don't provide everything that you need to know, you have a chance to ask any questions. So as you've noticed, when you came into the room, you've probably been asked to click OK to the recording. We will be making the webinar slides and the recording available from the website. So if you don't want to be on screen, just keep your camera off and keep yourself muted, and feel free to contribute through the chat. But when we get to the question and answer period, if people are happy to unmute their mic and put their camera on, then that's absolutely fine. So we'll leave it up to you to decide how you want to do it. Like I said, we will have time for questions and answers towards the end of the session, but please feel free to put things into the chat as we go along, and we'll keep track of the questions so that we can pick them up when we get to that part of the session. So I'm just going to start off the session today with a little bit about Fair Impact. Oh, my screen doesn't seem to want to move all of a sudden. There we go. So a bit about who we are. Fair Impact is a Horizon Europe Infra EOS project, which means that we are funded to really help realize the vision of the European Open Science Cloud. The key aim for Fair Impact is really to support that sort of practical level of implementation. We're a coordination and support action. We have been active now for just over a year. We started in June 2022, and we have another 2 years to run. So we'll be running right up until May 2025. We're quite a large project. We have 28 partners coming from across Europe, including 4 partners from the UK, including the DCC, which is where I'm based. As I said, the support program is really trying to help people to identify and make use of tools and resources to support implementing the FAIR principles. And by that, I mean data that are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, putting those FAIR principles into practice. Just a quick slide to give you a flavor of who's in the consortium. As I mentioned, there's 28 of us. It's led by DANS in the Netherlands. And we do have a lot of national level initiatives, including the DCC, DIKE in Denmark, CSE in Finland, INRAE in France, and CNRS in France, and Trust IT in Italy. So we've got quite a lot of national level actors involved. But we also have a lot of discipline-specific partners that we've brought into the project just to add to our body of expertise so that we have a little bit more on domain-specific aspects of making data fair. So we've got partners coming from research infrastructures, including EMBL, EBI. We have the Scientific Technology and Facilities Council in the UK, and we have the University of Manchester, who are involved in a number of different research infrastructures, and also partners like LifeWatch, ERIC. So we've got quite a broad range of expertise within the consortium, all dealing with particular aspects of research data management and supporting the implementation of the FAIR principles. So what we're trying to achieve with the FAIR Impact project, as I mentioned before, we're a coordination and support action. So really what we're trying to do is to support that sort of practical implementation of the FAIR principles and trying to ensure that we can help support the realization of the European Open Science Cloud by making sure that organizations can contribute and use research data that are fair. How are we working? We have spent a little bit of time in the first year of the project really trying to get a sense of what's out there to help people to implement FAIR in a practical sense. We're very keen as a project not to reinvent any wheels. We want to build on the outcomes of previous projects, specifically those that came before us in the Horizon 2020 Infor-ES projects. So there was a number of activities that were funded, lots of useful tools and resources that have come out of those. And part of what we're trying to do is really to amplify awareness of these and to support people in taking them up. Another key thing we're trying to do, and this is, again, by bringing in specific partners from different domains, we're trying to understand what works in one domain and seeing if we can translate aspects of good practice from one domain and putting into another. So we've got some work going on, for example, around persistent identifiers, where we see examples of commonality between the life sciences and the social sciences and trying to learn from each other as to how we might be able to do things a little bit better. And the last bit is really trying to progress the support and governance and coordination mechanisms around the implementation of the FAIR principles and supporting FAIR enabling practices. And to this end, we have three pillar work packages that are addressing topics like metrics for assessing the fairness of research outputs, including data, but also things like software and semantic artifacts, and also looking at things to do with persistent identifiers, metadata, and trustworthy repositories. So there will be guidance and recommendations coming out of the project as well. What I'd like to do now is just to get a bit of a sense of who's in the room with us today. So if people could go to menti.com and put in the code 7590741. And we just want to get a sense of who's in the room. So if you can just let us know, first of all, in which country your research performing organization is based, that would be great. Spain's first off the marks there. So Spain, Belgium, Finland, Scotland. Good to see some Scottish compatriots here. I'm based in Scotland too. So it looks like we've got quite a good range of countries in the room. So that's really great. Netherlands, quite a few people coming from the Netherlands. Great. Perfect. So I think what we're starting to see is some Canadian colleagues. Great. I'm from Canada, although I live in Scotland. So great to see Canada there too. Great. So I think we've got a good mix of countries in here. I think some of the countries here are definitely what we would consider to be quite advanced in their FAIR enabling journey, and that's great to see. So I think it's started to slow down now, so we'll move on to the next question. And I just wanted to get a sense of what kind of research performing organization you represent. Are you a university, a public research center or institute? Are you a private research center or institute? Maybe you're coming from the research infrastructure side, or I see some people are taking others. So if you want to put in the chat, maybe the others, that would be great. Looks like the majority of people are joining from the university side, and that's great to see, but also good to see that we're getting a mix of people in the room. No private centers as yet, so maybe that's a gap. We'll have to start looking at how we target the private research centers and getting them involved, but that's great to see. Again, I think it's starting to slow down a little bit, so we can move on to the next question. What I'd like to know now is, you're joining today, but what's your role within your organization? Just trying to get a sense of who has different roles within your organization and what kinds of people are joining today. So data stewards, that's good. We were expecting to get some of you. Research fellows, research supports, health data extractor. That's a new one for me. I've never seen that term before, so that's quite interesting. Great. IT consultants, So I think that's good. We're seeing lots of different roles coming up. You can include, I think, up to 3 different roles if you have more than one within your organization. I know several of us wear more than one hat. And I think the good thing we're seeing here is that it's not all just one type of role that's coming in here. So it's great to see data stewards are coming up as quite a central one, but they're certainly not the only actors that have a role to play in supporting the implementation of FAIR. So it's good to see that we're getting lots of different people in the room today. So that is great to see. Next question is just to get a sense of whether you currently provide support for research data management and the production and use of FAIR data. So what we're looking for here is whether you have a dedicated team, so something formally identified as an RDM support team. Maybe you just have something a little bit more ad hoc. So it might be just informally carried out at your organization through a mixture of different support teams working together. You might not have any support at the moment, and we've got a few again that say others, so feel free to put things in the chat if you want to share anything about what other means in this sense. But it seems like most people who are joining have some dedicated RDM support, so that's great. We've seen certainly a big expansion over the last few years in European universities in particular, who are starting to set up these kind of dedicated teams. But we know that there's a lot of people who are still just trying to get coordinated and get the activities together. So good to see that we're getting a mix of people in the room today. Right. I think this is the last question. I just wanted to get a sense. So if you do have a research data management support team, how many people might be part of that? So I've got some people who are just doing it by themselves. I think previously in other projects, we saw that was quite often the case where somebody within an organization was being tasked with doing a lot of work. And it seems like quite a few people in the room today are in small teams of 2 to 5 or 5 to 10, or the lucky ones with more than 10. That's great. But, you know, I think we do have to remember a lot of people are just trying to do this on their own, and they need some support to be able to do that. So I think we're seeing a bit of a slowdown again with the responses. So I think we can stop it here. If you do want to continue adding to the Menti, we'll leave it open. So if you didn't have a chance to already complete it, you can go back and put some information in there. So I'm just going to go back to the slideshow. And what I want to do now is, you know, thank you for taking the time to say a little bit about who you are. And what I'd like to do now is give you more of a flavor of what we're trying to do within FAIR Impact to try and provide support. We have 3 dedicated routes that we've identified to provide support. Route 1 is via dedicated guidance and one-to-one support. So this kind of support program doesn't get any financial support, but does benefit from getting significant one-to-one support from the FAIR Impact team of mentors. And that is the call that we're here to describe today is Route 1. But we have recently just had another open call for Route 2. And this is where we're giving people a little bit of money to help buy out their time to test particular tools or approaches and to help with the refinement of these. So the Route 2 is, we had an open call that just closed in June, and that first series of support offers will be starting in September. The third route that we have is through a series of public FAIR implementation workshops. So over the life of the project, we will be sharing dedicated webinar series, which anybody can join. You just have to register. It's not something you have to apply to join. It's just open for registration. And these will be, again, a way for us to share examples of what's going on with regards to specific tools, methods, or approaches, and these will be open to anyone. This series will start next month, so we will start putting information up on the website for you to get information there. So this, as I mentioned, is the second open call that we've had in the project. There will be 5 over the life of the project. The next calls will be coming up in January 2024, April, and then September 2024. So we'll have the one in January will be a Route 2 open call, which will be helping people to look at particular tools and approaches. April 2024 will be another Route 1 call where you'll get the dedicated one-to-one support. And then September 2024 will be a final call for the testing of specific tools and approaches. So as I mentioned, this particular session that we're here for today is to introduce the Route 1 level support for the research performing organizations. So a little bit of background on how we've been working. During the first year of the project, we, as I mentioned, did a lot of assessment to see what's already out there, what kinds of tools and methods and resources can we build upon and can we draw into our support programs. So we released D2.1, which was a landscape analysis back in, I think it was March 2023. And in that, we identified quite a large number of potential resources that we might want to include. Following some internal peer review processes, we whittled that down to about 30 resources. And this is something that we'll put into a catalog of resources that we will help to signpost to other people useful things that might help them to implement FAIR in a practical sense. But we decided that, tools and pointers to resources and methods is one valuable aspect, but really, if you're looking to implement FAIR, you need to think about it as part of a larger framework. So the catalog of resources is just one part of what we're calling the FAIR implementation framework, which is the diagram you can see on the screen. And it has 7 steps. And essentially what we're trying to do is to work with people to really consider the drivers, why you want to become more FAIR enabling. Perhaps it's because you want to be a contributor to the European Open Science Cloud, but it may also be because you want to address things like research integrity or reproducibility at your institution. So there will be different drivers that FAIR practices will align and help you to address. So it's helping you to think about this in the bigger picture. We also want people to think about where you are now. So before you can actually start thinking about implementing a particular approach, you really need to start thinking about where you are now, what sort of capabilities you currently have. So part of the framework will be helping you to carry out that sort of a self-assessment. You can then start to think about defining concrete actions. So once you know where you are and have identified where you want to be, then you can start to come up with an action plan to help you to reach that objective. And as part of that, you can start to identify different tools and approaches, but also equally important is step number 4, the engagement. So you need to kind of work out who else needs to be involved. Very few cases exist where somebody can implement an approach at their institution single-handedly. And certainly if you do, it probably won't be successful because so much of the way we work in universities has to be collaborative and it has to involve a number of different stakeholders playing their parts. So a really big part of the FAIR implementation framework is really understanding who you have to engage with and starting to think about how you get them involved. And that's equally true of the people who are going to help you provide support, but also for the people who might have to change their working practices. So researchers who may have to start doing things differently, thinking about engagement in both of those ways. Step 5 would be then actually taking your implementation forward. So whatever your action plan is outlining you to try and achieve, trying to see if you can put that into practice. But that's not the end of the story. Then you have to come back and really see, did the implementation result in what you were hoping it was going to achieve? So you need to do some sort of an evaluation as to whether you got the desired change, and if you didn't, maybe to consider why things didn't go the way you planned. And the last step in the framework is really to share experiences. So a lot of what we're doing right now is trial and error, and people just putting best practices forward and trying to progress things incrementally. And a really key thing is for us to share experiences with the communities. We're all trying to find our way together. So that would be the last step of the framework. So that's basically kind of informed how we structured the support programs that we're working on. And I wanted to now move on to some of the more practical aspects of what we will provide in our support programs. The main thing that you can get for the Route 1 support is a series of virtual workshops. These will be looking at different aspects of the FAIR implementation framework stages that we just went through, but also really trying to share examples of good practice around particular topics. You'll get expert guidance and advice from the FAIR Impact team, but more importantly, you'll get one-to-one support. So you will get at least one, but possibly 2 or 3 mentors working with you to help you to carry out a supported self-assessment, to help you start to develop that action plan and to start working on devising an engagement strategy. So you'll get the one-to-one support with the team to help you to do that. The other thing that we'll be doing with this particular support program, we want to work with the successful applicants to at least do one kind of local workshop. And it would be virtual for the FAIR Impact team. It might be in person for you, but we want to help the successful applicants to support, to plan and deliver one local workshop. And it could be in relation to the self-assessment or the action plan or the engagement strategy, but that would be one of the support actions that we'll work on. And then the last one is really to try and make sure that we can leverage some knowledge exchange between the peers, because as I said, we're all kind of working our way towards becoming more FAIR enabling as a community, and a really good way to do that is learning from our peers. So the support programs will definitely build in opportunities to ensure that happens. A little bit now on the timeline and the structure for the support program. The application process opens on the 30th of August. To fit in with the European Commission guidelines, we'll leave the applications open until the 1st of November, so 2-month period. And then there'll be a period of evaluation. People will be notified of the outcomes before the end of this year, so probably early December. And then the idea is that the workshops will start in late January. So we will have, as you can see on the screen, it will run over 9 months, starting in late January and finishing up in September 2024. And during that time, there will be a series of the virtual workshops. The frequency will likely be most of the workshops happening January, February, March. But in between those times, there will be some assigned homework and working with your mentors to carry out the supported self-assessment and to develop your action plan and to think about your engagement strategy. Towards the end of the project, we've built in 2 dedicated workshops to look at the knowledge exchange. So these would be where peers can really share their experiences and you would get a chance to learn from each other. So that's a bit about the sort of structure and the timeline. The mentors you'll be working with are going to be representatives from DANS, DCC, CSC in Finland, INRAE and CNRS in France, Dyke in Denmark, and Trust IT based in Italy. And as I mentioned before, we have a little bit of domain-specific expertise coming from LifeWatch ERIC, the Scientific and Technologies Facility Council, particularly around photon and neutron research, and EMBL EBI, which brings in life science experience. So we'll have a team of mentors coming from these organizations who all have a really strong background in delivering either generic or domain-specific expertise with relation to research data management and making data fair. So I just wanted to give you a flavor of the workshops. For the Research Performing Organization Support Program, we actually have a series of 10 virtual workshops that we'll be running through over the period between January and September. The first one is really, as I mentioned before, understanding the potential drivers for you actually taking any action. This is, again, really to try and make sure that you can make a good case for the investment of time or money at your organization. I think everybody in the room today agrees that becoming more FAIR enabling is a good thing, but when you go back to your organization, it can actually be a little bit trickier to convince senior decision makers that that's always a good idea. So the first workshop is really helping to give you a good set of some tools to help you make a good case for taking this forward at your institution. The second workshop is really starting to look at FAIR data policies at the research performing organization level. Quite a lot of people already have policies in place. Others are in the process of putting them together. So we will help you to look at your own policies and to provide some feedback on where they might need to be updated to reflect more FAIR enabling aspects. And if you don't have a policy, we'll help you to think about how you might get one started at your institution. The third workshop will be all about planning for fair data, because fair data doesn't happen by accident. It requires a lot of guidance and support. And to this end, we will be really looking at the support services for research data management, and in particular data management planning at the institution, and trying to help you think about how you can leverage expertise from across different parts of the university or whatever organization you work in, and really trying to make use of those free and existing tools and resources to help you deliver some support services. The fourth workshop is going to be considering the role of trustworthy repositories. And this is increasingly something that the funders are requiring, is that we make use of trusted repositories to deposit our data. There's still a lot of discussion going on in the community as to what trusted actually means. Certainly, it's one of the things we're grappling with in the Fair Impact project. We have a work package that is dealing with these questions as well. So we will try to help the cohort think about this and try and come up with some sort of community shared guidance on how to look for and choose trustworthy data repositories. And we will build on some work that came out of DataCite Commons for this. The workshop 5 is looking at training and guidance. We know a lot of the organizations here probably already run really good training programs locally, but it's not always the case. Some organizations are still struggling to be able to try and be able to provide training and guidance. And what we want to do really is to help you make use of what's already out there. There was quite a lot of resources that were produced in the INFRA EOSC Horizon 2020 projects, and we'll do a little bit of signposting to those. And also we have some expertise around engagement and skills development, so we will be sharing some good examples. A key thing we'll be bringing in here is some emerging activities coming out of the Skills for EOS project, which has been funded primarily to deal with skills development around the European Open Science Cloud. So we will be bringing in some examples and things that you can use from that project. So those are the kinds of thematic areas we'll be looking at. When we start to look at the kinds of activities you'll be engaged in, we've got a workshop 6 and 7 where you're going to start looking at assessing your current FAIR enabling capabilities. We've identified a couple of tools that we will present to you during that workshop and give you an introduction on how each works, and then you'll choose one of the two to carry out your own supported self-assessment during April. We'll also have the workshop looking at developing your action plan. So once you've assessed where you are and started to think about where you want to be, we will help you then to start drafting your action plans so that you can think realistically about how you can progress from where you are and start making those changes to become a more FAIR enabling organization. These activities will happen independently after the workshops, which will take place in March. Those two, you'll have the second half of March and all of April to really start to work on these independently. But as I said, you will get that one-to-one support with your mentors to help you to progress this. And that will happen either through Zoom or email or Slack. We'll come up with the preferred way of working with the cohorts once we start getting going. The two kind of next stages will be the peer exchange workshop, which I mentioned. So we have that planned for early May, and that will be a chance for people to share the kind of initial lessons learned from carrying out their FAIR assessment and starting to think about their action plan. This is a chance for people to come back and share any kind of challenges or roadblocks that they're encountering, and to draw from the mentors and the peers on ways to try and overcome some of these. Following that, we'll move on to developing an engagement strategy. So this is, again, once we've got the action plan in pretty good shape, then we want to start making sure that we're getting everybody, more aware of this and feeding into it, and then being able to understand how they can help to deliver and to align with it if they have to. And then we'll wrap it up in September, following a period of independent work, again, supported by your mentors, with another peer exchange workshop where people can come back and again, share the lessons learned. So that's a kind of quick overview of the program. What I wanted to give you now was a basic understanding of what we're expecting from people who take part in the program. First and foremost is the willingness to take part in the required workshops. As I mentioned before, they'll all be virtual, so there will be no travel. That's meant to kind of make it a little bit easier for people to take part. Willingness to carry out the assigned homework in between the workshops. And as noted, you will get one-to-one support. So you won't be on your own to do this, but you will be expected to kind of progress the activity with the support provided. We want to see in the applications that there will be some sort of willingness to act on the implementation plan. So we don't just want you to develop a plan. We actually want to know that you will put some aspect of these into action. You may not be able to do everything, but we do want to get a sense that something tangible will happen as a result of your participation in the program. The other thing that we want to see in the applications is an ability to engage with relevant local or national actors if that's relevant. But really just to understand, you can't do this on your own. You need to be able to start to have these conversations. So we want to have at least an awareness that you know who you might be working with and how you might go about trying to get those communications going. The final thing is that we will, as I mentioned, we want to share the experiences more widely so that it's not just living within, the support cohort. So we want everybody who takes part to participate in an exit interview, which will be used to draft a fair implementation story. And this is something we will co-author with you, and you will have a published output then sharing your experience. And based on, the life of the project, we've got another 2 years, we will have some follow-up questionnaires just to see how you're getting on in the longer term after your participation. So we would expect you to be willing to participate in those as well. I wanted to give people an estimation of the effort required. So it's a period of 9 months that the support program will work across. It's about 25 to 30 hours just to attend the virtual workshops over the period. So that is one thing you'll have to bear in mind. The effort varied, the effort needed to actually do the homework and come up with your self-assessment and your action plan and your engagement strategy. These will vary depending on the organization, but we would assume somewhere in the region of 40 to 50 hours. So this would be something that you might want to factor in. And then, as I mentioned, the exit interview and the follow-ups, we would imagine about 1 to 2 hours should be set aside for those. So that is not carved in stone. As I said, it will vary depending on each participant, but we wanted to give you a sort of an idea of what might be required. Last slide for me before I hand over to my colleague Rita. We just wanted to remind people who can apply to the open calls. It's basically open to any individuals, groups, or organizations, as I mentioned, not just from public, but also from private research performing organizations. So universities, research centers, research infrastructures, it's open to all, but we also have dedicated support programs for repositories and data service providers and for national level initiatives. So we've got dedicated support for each of these 3 groups, and you can decide which of them fits best with your requirements. One caveat is that the applicants must reside and or work in the European Union or associated country for the duration of the support program. And we have some advice on the website for that as well. So I think that was it for now. I wanted to hand over to my colleague Rita, who's going to run through the application process using the Trust Grants platform. So I'll hand over to you, Rita.
Thanks, Joy. Thank you for this complete overview and for passing me the words. So I'm Rita Menezes, Project Manager at Trust IT, and I will very briefly guide you on the Grants platform. So the Grants platform, if you may ask, what is it? Is where you will send to us your application. Okay, so everything will be done there. And you may think, how I can have access to this grants platform? Do I need to create an account or not? Yes, you do. You need to go to the Fair Impact website. You need to create an account, your personal account, and log in. As soon as you do this, you just need to go to the official page of the open call, click on the support program you are looking for, in which in this case is the research performing organizations. And when you click on the button, the website will take you to the Fair Impact Grants platform where you will submit your application. Next slide, please, Joy. Then this is the grants platform. And since this webinar is focused on the research performing organizations, you just need to click where the yellow arrow is. So you need to click on apply now, as Joy is showing up now. Next slide, please. And then when you click on apply now, you will have access to the application form. And here you just have to reply to some questions you had prepared for you to fill in so you can evaluate your profile. You may ask, when I start filling this in, do I need to fill everything at once? No, you can start, you can save as a draft, you can come back later on the day, the following week, and so on, and to revise your questions. When you are happy with your replies and you feel confident that you prepare the best answers to be selected to these grants and to our support, you only need to click on the submit button, which will be available at the bottom of the application form. And another question you may have, how I'm going to be evaluated. So you will be evaluated by 3 different evaluators which are part of the Fair Impact Consortium. And the thing is, these evaluators, the 3 ones, will not, let's say, check how the other peer is evaluating your application. So these will be totally independent. Each one of them will do their own evaluation. And at the end, we will just bring together the 3 results and prepare an average and so on. And this is how this will work. An important thing is that, and John will go further into detail on that matter. So the applications will open on the 30th of August, so this week on Wednesday, and they will be open till the 1st of November. So you have 2 months
Okay, I think I lost you there for a minute. I'm not sure if that was just me though.
Now I was requesting if you could go to the next slide, please.
Okay. So I think that was...
So I was just mentioning for the applicants to send their applications by the 1st of November, so they need to click on the submit button within that deadline. And they have 2 full months, September, October, and also part of, it's the last day of August to prepare the application, to feel confident with that. And the thing is, what we are looking for in these applications, I think I'll pass the word to Joy.
Yeah, thanks very much, Rita. So the application platform is relatively straightforward to use, and hopefully when you get there, you won't have any problems, but we do have some dedicated support as people are going through the process. So once you're putting in your applications, I just wanted to give you a little bit of guidance on the kinds of things that we're asking you. A lot of the questions, we've tried to keep it really low burden on the applicants so that you don't have to spend an awful lot of time filling in the forms. We've tried to keep the questions fairly focused so that we're just getting the information that we really need to get from you. So we do have a few questions where we're asking you to sort of self-assess your current level of activity in relation to research data policy, the support for data management planning, the research data repository service, and your provision of training and guidance. And I think it's important to note here, we're not saying that being more advanced is good here, nor is it the case that you have to be just getting started. What we're looking to do is really to get a sense of where you are and to understand what parts of the process you might be finding difficult with the implementation. So we don't want you to feel like you have to choose the most advanced option. So really be honest when you're answering these, because we're trying to get a good mix of people in the support program. And indeed, we're looking to try and get those who are less advanced and trying to make sure we get at least 50% of the applicants who are just getting started. So please be honest when you're answering that, and don't answer what you think you want us to see. We want to get an idea again about your current familiarity with concepts of the European Open Science Cloud and with the FAIR principles. And again, answer honestly and not with what you're expecting, you think we would expect to see. We do want to try and make sure we're targeting a broad range of people and getting people who are just getting started on their FAIR enabling journeys and helping them to move forward. So once you've kind of given us that information, we also have a few short open statements where we'll be looking, I think it's a 250 word maximum, so not a huge amount of information. So we would encourage you to focus on really tangible and practical answers here. But we just wanted to get a short statement on what you were hoping to get out of the participation in the support program, just so we know that we're meeting your expectations. Because what we don't want is to have people joining and then find out that you have different expectations than what we're offering. So we really want to make sure we're managing the expectations and we get a sense of what you're hoping to achieve. A description on how you're going to share the knowledge you gain through participation with the relevant actors at your institution. And again, this is all to do with engagement and being able to demonstrate that you know who you need to engage with and you have some ideas even at the outset as to how you might do this. We'll certainly progress this through the support program, but we would want to at least see that you have a good idea as you're starting out. Bottom point here is that we, as I mentioned, are hoping to prioritize the applications from those who are maybe less advanced on their FAIR enabling journeys. But we are equally happy to receive applications from people who might be more advanced, because I don't think anybody's got a 100% perfect solution yet. There might be particular areas that you're very advanced in, others that you're less advanced in. So if you're looking to progress one particular area in your application, then you can make that clear. So just to make you aware, we are looking to prioritize those who are just getting started, but that is not meaning that we're excluding anybody who's more advanced. So that was pretty much all I wanted to do for the overview of the session. I just want to stop sharing my screen now, and we will go to questions and answers. And
I see we have one. We have now one written on the chat from Bora Luzhai. I think you can see. Can you see it, Joy?
Yeah, so you mentioned you're targeting a broad range and levels of activity relating to FAIR, but it may be the case that there is also a variety on the level of RPOs that are with regards to various domains covered by each workshop. Are you looking to balance that aspect as well? Yes, we are looking to get a good balance, hopefully, in terms of who's joining, both from different domains and also from different countries. But we're looking to achieve a fairly good balance. And I think in particularly, that will be important for the knowledge exchange between peers as well. So getting that good mix of different perspectives and different levels of maturity is something that hopefully can be leveraged when we get to the peer exchange workshops. So hopefully that answers your question, but if not, feel free to unmute if you want.
No, that answered my question. I was mainly referring to the fact that some, as you mentioned, that I mean, I think you answered the question, but just to clarify, you mentioned that not everyone. Sorry, my son is here. Not everyone has it together when it comes to FAIR. But some organizations might have more trouble with policy, and others might have more trouble with actual, concrete actions and so on and so forth. So that's what the balance that I was asking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly something that we found. You can have organizations that you think are, really leading and they should have no problems with this. And I think everybody has at least some areas that they're struggling with. So we're hoping that we can offer something to everybody. But we'll certainly, if you can make clear in your applications any particular areas that you really would be looking for support, then we can just make sure that you're going into the right program and getting what you need. So that's great. I don't know if there's a few more questions. Just check the chat. One thing
I don't see.
There was a question we actually had following the workshop that we ran on Friday, which was to introduce the national level support program. So I probably will share that here because it may be relevant. So one of the questions we had was whether you can apply to join more than one. So we have 3 support programs that are going to be opened for applications in the open call that launches on Wednesday. There's a support for national level initiatives. There is a support program for research performing organization, which is what today's session is about. But there's also a support program for data repositories and data service providers. And I think there's a blurring of the lines in many cases. So you might be a university that has a role in a national sense. You may also have a repository service that you're operating. So I think in many ways, it'll be up to you to have a look at the different support programs and see what's being offered and to try and decide which one is the best fit for you. We're not saying that you have to, if you're a research performing organization like a university, if the repository program looks more of interest to you, then that would be the right one to apply for. There's no limit on the number of support programs you can apply to. So if you think that all three are potentially of interest, then there's no reason that you can't apply to all three. During the evaluation, obviously we'll be trying to achieve a good balance in the number of organizations that we're supporting. So we don't want to give, all of the support to one organization. So we'll be trying to get a good balance. But I mean, I think it's certainly, there's no reason that you can't apply to more than one. What we will probably ask is that you can make clear in your application, if you are applying to more than one, which is your preferred program that you want to join. So we'll work that into the application form as well online. But in theory, you can apply to more than one. We'll just be taking into consideration during the evaluation, getting that good split of supporting as many organizations as we can and trying to get good balance. So I don't know if there was any other questions that anybody has in the chat. I'm just going to take a quick scan. I don't see any questions.
I don't see.
No. Okay. Well, if we're short on questions now, we do have some information on the web page, and you can ask questions later. Just going to have a quick look at that. It came in. So do you apply as an individual or as an institution? You should apply as an individual. That's the capacity to apply to the program on behalf of your institution. So we will allow people to include up to 3 participants for each of the support programs. So if you're coming and let's say you're coming from the library in your organization and you would also like to involve somebody from the IT department or maybe somebody from the research office, you can bring up to 2 additional people from your team. So you would be the lead applicant in the personal sense, but you should be working in an organizational capacity.
Right. I believe there is a new question from Nick Daniels on the chat.
Yeah, I think we've just answered that one. So
okay.
Hopefully if there's any questions, but you should be applying as an individual.
Sorry, there is a Bora. Sorry, I got confused. There is another one from Bora.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So in terms of the self-assessment tools, there are a couple that we will be looking at in this particular program. One is called Acme Fair, and it is a thematic self-assessment toolkit that came out of the Ferris Fair project. And it looks at a number of different aspects of being a fair enabling organization. And the other one is called Do I Pass for Fair? And this is another toolkit. It was developed in the Netherlands, and it is another kind of rubric that helps people to start to self-assess their current capabilities for supporting the production and reuse of FAIR data at an organizational level. So we will be providing some introductions to those tools in the workshops and giving people some support on how to make use of them. And we can include some links to those, and we'll make sure that we put them in the slides later for you. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. If there is, I will just go in and maybe we can do the wrap up. I'll just share my screen. So just a couple wrapping up slides for me then. A reminder of the key dates. You've heard this a few times already, but just to remind you again, all 3 of the support programs will open for applications on the 30th of August. So Wednesday this week, you'll be able to go to the grants platform and start to put in your applications. we'll leave the applications open for 2 months, and this is to meet up with European Commission guidelines on allowing people a good amount of time to apply. So the deadline for applying is the 1st of November, and that will close at 5 p.m. European time on the 1st of November. So if you're getting your application, and make sure to click submit by the 1st of November. As we mentioned before, the evaluation will take place during November, with a notification anticipated to come out in early to mid-December, just to make sure that everybody's aware of who's going to be invited to take part, and the actual support programs will begin in January 2024. So that's just a reminder of the key dates that we'll be following. And I wanted to remind people, as you've heard a couple of times, we have 3 different support programs. We had a workshop on Friday to introduce the National Level Support Program, and the recording and the slides are available on the website now. So if you missed that one and you want to see what was covered, we encourage you to have a look there. But tomorrow we will also have the 3rd of these 3 introductory workshops, and it will be introducing the repositories and data service providers support program. So that again will be tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock Central European time. And if you want to register, then you can click on the link on the slide, and I think you can still register for that right up until the event, actually. So just a reminder for that. And then all that I want to share here on this slide is the email that you can use if you do have any additional questions that we didn't cover today, or if you think of things that are coming to your mind after the fact. Then get in touch with us at open calls at fair-impact.eu, and that will be a dedicated help desk for you to communicate with us for any questions related to the open calls or the application process. So that is your port of call if you want to get any more questions to us. And with that, I'll just say thank you very much to my colleague Rita for giving the overview on the grants platform, and thank you very much to all of you for joining us today. And we do hope that one of the support programs will look useful to you, and we would encourage you to apply. And definitely keep in touch if you have any questions. And thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll be waiting for your applications.